Good evening, Levi.
What's after?
Good, Baruch Hashem. You probably want to make me co-host so I can share screen.
Yeah, I thought I can do it from the other computer, but I can't, so I'm going to do it from here. Make co-host. There we go.
What's that? You open the new...
It's Mendel, my son, was going to do the admitting, because with the new tzaras of Zoom.
An Xader, yeah. But apparently, I'm still... It worked. If everyone has a passcode, and you unclick waiting room, then they get straight in once they put in the passcode.
Right. So that's either a passcode or a waiting room.
Yeah, but sometimes they're both clicked. So the passcode only gets them into the waiting room. Doesn't help. You have to untick the waiting room, and it'll tell you need to have one of them or both. And then password, and everyone can just come in freely. But you're recording as we're talking, so we have to be careful what we talk.
That's also a good point. And we're streaming.
Yeah, you're live streaming. You're early.
Let's just arrange these breakout rooms.
Okay, we have 2 Minuten. Ich mache eine Kave. Ask Gabriel if he wants to listen for 10 minutes. Let's turn that off. Levi Cohen, you look very, very excited. What did he write? He saw what he wrote. It's all in the marketing. Right? Behind the scenes tour. Personal photo album. It's all in the marketing. Kenshin Meinen. Eet is zo weg.
Just don't advertise your address.
Behind the scenes.
Come and count it.
Kenshin Meinen. Shnei Zaman Adz reading the Megillah in Cheshvan.
Okay, I think that's what you described it to me.
You gotta listen to the message again. I don't think I used any of those terms, but anyway.
I think we're ready to go. Very good. Shekoyach, thank you. You want to jump right into it?
As soon as you're ready.
Yeah, I think we should go. I think we should start.
Oh, that's it? You're not welcoming everybody?
You're welcome, Avram. Bye-bye,
I think we should start, Baruch Hashem.
Okay, in that case, I'll get started. Let's share the screen. Good evening, everyone. So we have the Kollel Chassidus, first 10 minutes. Give a little, what they call mimush. The Rebbe said, there's a saying, and I heard the Rebbe saying it as well, by dollars, if I remember correctly. There's an expression that a picture is 1,000 words. And what you can do with the picture, to describe a picture can take even 1,000 words. Many pictures are loaded with information. It's just, you need to know perhaps just the simple story that's behind the picture. So for tonight and for the next few weeks until now it's Cheshvan, so there's no particular theme that I can pick of a series of pictures. So I decided, I looked through my own personal photo album that I have on my computer and go through the pictures. Each one has more or less a little story or something behind it, and give us an awareness of different aspects of the Rebbe's Hanhagos, which not necessarily do we know from learning the Rebbe's Teres. So here we go. Wrong one. Okay, so I'll start with this one. Okay, this is a set of two pictures here. In my file, it starts with A. Why does it start with A? I don't remember, but at the library, that's what it was. So it started with these two. These are for 2 different years. Can anyone guess what's going on over here? Let's make this one bigger. So this is next door to 770, as you see, 766 Eastern Parkway. And here it's interesting, the Rebbe is standing on the side. The Rebbe is not standing in the middle. And the Maskirim is standing in the middle. We see Rabbi Chadakov and Leibel Groner and Benjamin Klein, Yidel Krinsky. This is Wilhelm, the librarian from the Rebbe's library. Well, he was the librarian he worked with Chaim Lieberman from the other library. This picture is every year, I don't know when it started, but every year the Rebbe would send matzah to the Chassidim in Eretz Yisrael. and this was usually at the end of Adar, the beginning of Nisan, where the Rebbe would come out at night before to Maim Shalonu, and the next day they would bake the Rebbe's matzahs. Their matzah that the Rebbe himself used was baked on Erev Pesach, but this was which was the matzah which the Rebbe then would be baked the next day, and then either the next day or whenever it was, usually the next day, they would be brought to the library, and the Rebbe would walk across from the office to the library, take off, this is done inside, they would take off challah, say the bracha, and then there was always a shliach, somebody who was going back to Eretz Yisrael, and the Rebbe would use him as the shliach to deliver the matzahs to Eretz Yisrael. There's one particular, so this is the way it used to be in the library. It was done quietly, privately, no one really saw. And this one we see in this picture is when they already delivered them into the matzahs, the boxes went into a truck, and the Rebbe's seeing him off now. So they're going off to Kennedy Airport. In El Al, they would do it for free. They would take all the matzahs. Kuti Rap would be very much involved. In the late Mems, or middle to late Mems, this changed, and it was done outside the Rebbe's room. So that all the matzah was brought to Gan Eden HaTachten, and that's where you already see videos, starting from Toshim Mem Zayin, we see videos of the Rebbe coming out, and the big brown paper on top of the boxes, and the Rebbe would be manipulating under the paper, and he would break off the challah and make the bracha. That was once a year when the Rebbe broke off matzah to make the bracha on challah. And then the Rebbe gave out sometimes a michtav klali in dollars, and he would give it to the Vad of Kfar Chabad, and the Rebbe would say who to give out. They would send it to Kfar Chabad, and then they would give her the matzah. And Chassidim in Eretz Yisrael were able to get matzah from the Rebbe, and that's what here Label Grown is holding the bag. That's presumably the dollars, the left which the Rebbe didn't give out, so that would have been the bag of the dollars. Let's go to the next one. So this is now I'm not sure 100%, but I think this is Tafshin Mem Aleph. I'll tell you why in a minute. But this is clearly a different year. It's warmer. Here it's still, everyone's in coats. This is a different year, the same event. I don't know who this is. It's not David Raskin, but here's Kuti Rap, who used to organize with El Al. And here there was walking back from the library back to 770 after they had gone. If you look at the back of the Kuti Sichas Chelik of Beis, so over there's the Sicha from Tafshin Mem Aleph was Muga. And interestingly, it's the only time, as far as I know, in all of the Kuti Sichas, where not just the Sichas there, but the whole Yuman, the whole diary of the whole event happened. And that was interesting. That's my father and mother-in-law were there, and their names are mentioned in the Kuti Sichas, together with some others who had gone. They went to deliver a Tanya to the Rebbe that was printed then. And this was the day before Birchas Achamo. So that is Muga, together with the Sicha that the Rebbe spoke at Birchas Achamo. And that's in the back of the Kuti Sichas Chelik Chav Beis. So that's what these two pictures from two different years, but I think this is the one from Tafshin Mem Aleph. So inside there, they presented the Rebbe the Tanya, so there was a few things that happened at the same time. That's what this is. Okay, this is Meir Itkin's house, one of the Itkins watching there, and there was walking back. Okay, that's the story behind this picture. This picture is already one of the last. This is the Tafshin Nun Beis already. And the picture is the Rebbe standing. It's at a Levaya. There were a few Levayas that year that the Rebbe went out to attend. This is not from the people who are there. It's not the Lapine Levaya, but it's one of the Levayas there. And the Rebbe was waiting till the Oren, till the hearse went past, and this was the Rebbe then at that Levaya. This goes back to Tafshin Lamed Vov. This picture. This picture, Tafshin Lamed Vov, in the summer of Tafshin Lamed Zayin, Lamed Vov, in the summer of Tafshin Lamed Vov, Chav Ov, I think it was, but in Menachem Chedesh Ov, there was then, it was on Living Torah a few weeks ago, it was the Olympics were in Toronto, and 1976, and there was the Paralympics with the after the regular Olympics goes the Paralympics, those who are the disabled and wheelchair and so on. And there was a whole team that came from Eretz Yisrael, they were Nechei Tzahal, the war heroes, the disabled of the Tzahal. So someone gave them the idea, they were going to New York to see the big buildings. So someone said, come to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and there was arranged, and they came, and downstairs in 770, all the benches were moved. The Rebbe came down. There was a few months ago, there was a Living Torah all about it. The Rebbe came down and spoke a sikh in Ivrit to all of them, and then the Rebbe went down and gave each individual person there, men and women, the Rebbe gave each one $1 and spoke to each one of them. And you can see the Rebbe is holding in his hand over here. This is, the story goes that one of them was very excited to see the Rebbe, and he wanted to give the Rebbe a souvenir. So he gave the Rebbe what they call in Israel the kova tembel. You know, it's the kova tembel, the dunce hat, the dunce cap that they used to wear. Israelis were known for this type of cap that they used to wear, which was called the kova tembel, and he gave it to the Rebbe as a gift. And here, the Rebbe held on to it throughout the whole thing. This was on the way out. When the Rebbe finished the sikha, the Rebbe walked up to each wheelchair, to each individual person, it was men and women, and had a word with them, shook the men's hands, and gave everybody $1 and chizuk. It's an amazing event. That's what this one of the pictures from that event. Okay, this is special because this is Motzei Shabbos Va'era. I think it's Motzei Shabbos Va'era, Tovshin Lamed Tes. Okay, so this is Motzei Shabbos Mevorchim. The Farbrengens of the Rebbe was still after Simchas Shmini Atzeres Lamed Ches. The Farbrengens were always Motzei Shabbos, and this was the first time that the Rebbe stood up to dance by Farbrengen since Shmini Atzeres Lamed Ches. So it was a very major thing that the Rebbe should stand up and dance. The Rebbe was still recovering. It's over a year later. The Rebbe should stand up and dance. The Rebbe didn't do this again until Tovshin Mem Vov. Was the next time that the Rebbe stood up to dance. So it was a good 6 years later. This was also the Rebbe's mother's 100th birthday. I think it was 100th birthday from Tofresh Lametes, Tovshin Lametes. But at the time, that nobody knew. That we only discovered many, many years later. So here, the Rebbe stood up, and it was a very, very special that the Rebbe should stand up to dance, which used to be a common thing. But after Lamed Ches, this was a very, very special moment. Okay, this is Sukkos. The Rebbe would go out every morning to his sukkah, to the big sukkah, to the sukkah that's in the garden that you might be familiar with. And when the Rebbe would come from his house in the morning, the Rebbe would go to his room, and he would then take his Abra Minim, and a few minutes later go out to the sukkah, and over there was already prepared Mizenis. The Rebbe would make a bracha on his Abra Minim, with the door closed, obviously. And after 10 minutes or so, he would open the door, and Mayor Harlig would go and take it, and they would tell him Atanam Nas Lahachze, and then all the Chassidim were able to shake with a lulav. So this is what it looked like. This could have been 7:30, 8 in the morning. They would come earlier on Chol Hamoed than he normally came in the week. During the year was 10 o'clock, but Chol Hamoed would be earlier. And here there was on his way. It's obviously a rainy morning of Sukkot, so he's on his way to there. This is Mashiach Sefer Torah. We know Mashiach Sefer Torah all year round. Today has a white mantle, but originally it was this blue or red mantle, depending on the picture, I guess the different shades. And the Rebbe carried the Sefer Torah under a chuppah from the Farbrengen Bima to the Aron Kodesh, and here the Rebbe is carrying that Sefer Torah, Mashiach Sefer Torah. This is again to the Nechei Tzahal, to the war heroes. It was giving them dollars. Here you see, the Rebbe has already 2 souvenirs here. This is the Kova Tembel, or this one. There's already 2 things that people gave him, souvenirs. This is the Rebbe's mother's Levaya, Tovshin Chof Hei. Okay, I'll make it a bit bigger. You see here, this is the oil right here. And here, the Rebbe's mother was buried over here. If you remember where the Rebbe's Chana is buried, it's not opposite by the oil, it's down here. And here you see the Rebbe is right here. The Rebbe is walking back to the car. If I remember correctly, I read that the Rebbe went in for a moment into the oil, and then he carried on out, and he went to the car. So this is one of the few, if not the only, or one of the few pictures that there is from that. This is Sunday, Zayin Tishrei, Tovshin Chof Hei, September 1964. Again, this is part of that set. They should have put them together. Here the Rebbe is again with the soldiers. So here the Rebbe is coming into 770. Why is he not using the front door? Let's make it bigger again. So why would the front door not be available? This is Lag Ba'omer. So this is the early Lameds. And you see the sign here. So the front was covered already. The steps weren't available. So there was walking into 770 from the side door. Okay. And there is a video or picture, I can't remember, which I didn't find it here, where one of the years they came walking, and it was like Boimers, they were just jumped on a bench and climbed over over this. He just climbed over the fence and he went straight through without anything. No one saw. They were busy clapping and hugging. And Rebbe just came in and he climbed over the. Anyway, so this is Lag BaOmer 1 year, early Lameds. They're wearing coats, so maybe it was Lamed Gimel. I think it was quite cold. It was still early in the season. Here's another Lag BaOmer parade with our hero, Fred Flintstone. Toshin Mem Daled, the Lag BaOmer parade, there were cars with the 10 Mivtzoim, and they used different cartoon figures. I don't know if anyone knows who Fred Flintstone is. Okay, it's an American thing. This is Tisha B'Av in the Chovs. A plain box. Years later, they already made more fancier boxes for the Rebbe, but he's noticed that there's no cover on the stender. It's the old stender. The cover was taken off, and the Rebbe Siddur is here, and this is Kinnis. This is Tisha B'Av in the morning. In the 770, before it stretched into the large size it is today, so here's still the paneled wall. It's not the white wall yet. Okay, now here is I got it wrong. I don't know when this is. It's at the end of Farbrengen. You can see here the bag. The Rebbe's already collected all the panim. People have sent in the panim. And at the end of the Farbrengen, the Rebbe jumped up and this is obviously mid-Lameds, Lamed Hey, Lamed Vav perhaps, I don't know. There was clapping and dancing with the Eilam at the end of the Farbrengen. Rebbe Cohen, you tell me when we're done. Is the guest speaker here yet? Yeah, fine. So we'll leave it out here for today.
Rakim, very interesting. Thank you. There's a lot of, maybe you can tell us a little more about each picture. You don't have to rush so much. It's very interesting. Yeah, just a very little glimpse. It's very, very nice. Shkoyach. We're going to go now to the Sikha. The Sikha is for Zayin Cheshvan. Thank you very much. Mati, welcome back. To my shwager. It's very nice to see you. I think we're going to pop the Sikha on the screen so people can follow along. That's okay. Yeah, thank you very much for joining.
We're also going to open up the breakout rooms now.
So, are we on? So, first of all, Yasher Keach, this is a big schus for me to be Mishtatef in the Kollel Manchester. Shalom Aleichem, everybody. I had some of my most special years in the yeshiva in Manchester. So, I'm very happy to join you. I know a lot of your faces. And Rabbi Kievman, we ended up at your Chabad house for Farbrengen. The Gimel Ear when it was, I think, Toshin Ayin Beis, if you remember that. Anyhow, so a little just introduction. This is a pretty famous Sikha. Many of you have learned it before, and I don't feel like I'm the one to teach it, but I was asked to do this, so we'll do it together, Mitzvah Hashem. Want to make a few hakdamas. Obviously, Zayin Mar Cheshvan is a date that is a date for all Jews, specifically. If you talk about Halacha and Eretz Yisrael, it reminds me of, in general, there are certain Yomim Tovim, why do you call them Yomim Tovim? Dates on the calendar, let's call, that, so to speak, the Rebbe revived, which familiar to many are Pesach Sheni, Chamisha Asar B'Shvat, Chamisha Asar B'Menachem Av. These dates are the Rebbe's Yomim Tovim, so to speak. Now, the ironic part is that they're most of basic Yiddishkeit. If you learn a little Torah, you know, a little bit of Halacha, the Mishnah, these were the greatest days all along. And somehow, because either they weren't relevant after Beis Hamikdash existed, or for other reasons outside Eretz Yisrael, you didn't live there, these dates kind of faded away. And the Rebbe, in his trademark style, always takes Yiddishkeit that already exists. The Chiddush of Chassidus is not to introduce new inyanim, but to take that which you already have in Yiddishkeit and bring it to the forefront to really realize that these are important dates, and these dates give us a real chayas, and especially in the times that we're in. So I think the same would be said with Zayin Mar Cheshvan. It's a date in halacha, and in halacha there's a difference between the other dates that I mentioned, what's Pesach Sheni or other dates that are Yom Tovim. Really, Zayin Cheshvan is a halachic date for all Jews, but it's not a date of marking a celebration or even something exciting. It's really, you'll see as we go along in the Sikha, it starts obviously in the Gemara and further on in the Paskim, but it's something that the Rebbe really celebrated and revived some days, some years the Rebbe Pasha verbringt, whether it wasn't a Shabbos, but Zayin Cheshvan is one of those days of the Rebbe's days, and every Lubavitcher Chassid knows that Zayin Cheshvan is a special date. So before we get into the actual Sikha, I'd just like to share a little feeling of mine that is, hopefully people will appreciate. Zayin Cheshvan, whatever we're going to learn, we all know that it's marking an end point in the whole Elul, Tishrei, Yom Tif time. And that's really what Zayin Cheshvan is. So I thought I'd share with you a Nakuda. It's really a Simchas Torah Nakuda, but it happened and it made a big impact on me. And so I thought I'd share with you. And it's a all around the year important concept to always reiterate to ourselves. So I'm a shliach in a small suburb of Albany, which is called Colony, New York. And I learned with a Yid Chassidus. Now, a lot of times I learned in Manchester with a lot of Yid Chassidus, mostly Polishers or other Chassidim that live wherever near Machzig whatever, those areas. But I learned with a Yid who's long hair, who has a beard. His Hebrew name is Moshe, but he doesn't go by Moshe, and he's married to a guy. I learned with him Chassidus. So we're learning Kudris and Yom Teres Chassidus. And I learned with him every week. Anyhow, what happened is that this Sukkot, he came to, we didn't have a minyan, we had a small town, and it's Corona anyway, but he came to my Sukkah to daven with a few Yidden. So he came early, he likes to say a little L'chaim. I don't have a lot of people that like to do that, but he comes early for that. And he tells me, he sits down early in the Sukkah before everyone else comes. He says, Rabbi, I feel like a Reform Chassid. So I was startled. What's Reform Chassid? So I assured him, I said, no, Mark, you're a Chassid. You learn Chassidus. You're involved in teaching of Chassidus. You're a Chassid. He says, you don't understand. He says, I'm a Reform Chassid. Why? Because I love Chassidus. He loves, the more esoteric it becomes, the more Haskal it is, the more he enjoys it. But he doesn't feel bound to halacha. He doesn't feel that he has to do what Hashem says. So he's a Reform Chassid. Reform means he does picks and chooses. He's a Reform Chassid. So it was, he's married to a guy. He by this time, actually, he's already putting on tefillin every day. So he's not such a Reform Chassid, but that's what he told me. And that was like an interesting question. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. He wanted to confide in me, this is where he's holding, and that's the story. So the Rebbe gave me the right words, and I said something to him afterwards. We had the law to bring about, and it's something important that I thought about Simchas Torah, and we're really in Zayin Cheshvan still coming from Simchas Torah. And that is that I told him, I said, Mark, I also don't feel bound by halacha. I feel embraced by the halacha. And he got very excited about it. They said, Rabbi, that's one thing I'll tell about you, Chabad. He goes to Reform. He's very involved in learning. There's not much to learn by them, but he learns different places. He tells me, you're right. You Hasidim feel embraced by the halacha. So anyhow, this is a fun thing to think about, even though I said it to him. I also need to remind myself sometimes, Simchas Torah is when we dance with the Torah, and Zayin Cheshvan is kind of the last station in this long train to keep us through the entire year. So just the important thing to remember that Chassidim are embraced. Obviously, we're bound to halacha. We have to do all the Torah mitzvahs with Yiras Shamayim, but there's a certain embrace that we feel about Yiddishkeit. Anyhow, that's my introduction as the last times of Tishrei. I'm sorry that the sun's in my eyes. I'll try my best to go to a different little part here. All right, so we're going to learn the Sikha together. Please join me inside. So this is a Sikha that's Lech Lecha and Zayin Cheshvan. So it's a combination of the Parashas Shavua and Zayin Cheshvan. If anybody has any comments or things that they want to interject, I don't know what the Seder is, but you're more than welcome to give your 2 cents, and we'll get started right away. the Seder will be that we'll learn as much as we can. I thought I was going to skip through parts of the Sikha, but I realized this is a unique Sikha that every Indian is like already you have something, so you can continue on at the end if you like, but we'll start together. In other words, we're just going to read all the Seder, and some things I'd like just to point out. So the Rebbe starts, Zayin man cheshvan felt eis alamo nervach from Parshas Lechacha. So it's always, Zayin man cheshvan is always in Parshas Lechacha. Val Pia Yedua, the Mea de Ashana from Lashon Miyut. As Spitzelers man, haben as Sheicha. So the Parshas Lechacha fallen eis is move on as eis Zayin man cheshvan hat a techenik of Rabbon Parshas Lechacha. So all Mea de Ashana, this is a known Indian the Rebbe's Torah. This is from the Shalah, Parshas Vayeshev. It's actually interesting that the Shalah, if you see Ha'ara 2, it's from the Shalah in Parshas Vayeshev. So I just think it's interesting to note that the Shalah is like you say for many sikhs, and many inyanim in the Rebbe's Torah is this thing that you have to connect the Parshas Shavua with the time that it falls out. So it's interesting that the Shalah says this in Parshas Vayeshev, and it's regarding connecting Chanukah to the Parsha of Vayeshev. That's where it is. Chanukah falls out sometimes Miketz, Vayeshev, anyhow. So it's interesting that this word of the Shalah, if it's a true word, you should have started earlier. So you could say in Pashtos, you start Bereshis, and you get to Chanukah, kind of the first Yom Tov that you'll meet after Bereshis, pretty much is Chanukah. So that's what Pashtos, how I think it's understood. But in other words, if this is such an Indian, it should be by every Yom Tov. And the truth is, it is by every Yom Tov. But the kind of the first Parsha that it applies is Vayeshev. First Yom Tov is Chanukah. And I think it's also special, you think about it, because the Rebbe is always extending this not only to a Yom Tov like Pesach near this Parsha, or, Rosh Hashanah after Nitzavim, all this classical Inyanim, but the Rebbe also connects it to Yom Pagra, Chassidus Inyanim. Here we have Zayin Cheshvan. But you see that the Shalah already saw this. The first time he said it wasn't just punkt because it's the first time of the Torah. It's a Yom Tov D'Rabbanan. In other words, Mela, when you talk about a Yom Tov that's from the Torah, like Sukkot, it falls out of this and this Parsha, there has to be a connection. It's a Yom Tov, Min Torah, so Rosh Hashanah, why are we reading about Nitzavim and Rosh Hashanah? There's an explanation. The first time, the very core of this word, the Shalah, is about a Yom Tov D'Rabbanan, which obviously can't be read in the Torah. It's not like we're going to read about Chanukah and Chanukah. The Torah has what to talk about, and it doesn't mention Chanukah, so it's obviously not going to be Chanukah. Anyhow, take it or leave it. Let's continue. So the Rebbe says there must be a connection between Lechacha and Zayin Mar Cheshvan. Befrat, the Zayin Mar Cheshvan falt is allemal in Parshas Lechanal. If the andere Mendim was sehr kvios in the Parshas when sie zenechal beit sich mishana l'shana. So this parenthesis, the Rebbe says something interesting. He's adding to the general idea that any Yom Tov should connect with the Parsha. The Rebbe is saying that this is one of those Yom Tovim, there are some, but not many, that always falls out in Parshas. It will never be in any other Parsha. And other Yom Tovim sometimes, like I said, Chanukah, it could be Miketz, it could be Vayeshev, etc. So therefore, this idea of the Shalah is even more significant, that we have to find a connection from Zayin Cheshvan to Lechacha. Just one more thing. The Rebbe said earlier that, the word Moyad Yashana means Miyuad Spitzeler Zman. So I'm just saying it shows this idea even more with a Yom Tov that always falls out at a specific parsha, because the whole idea of Moed means it's so set in time. It's a specific special time. And that is emphasized even more on a Yom Tov that always falls out at a certain time, like, I don't know if you call it a Yom Tov, let's just call it the halachic date of Zayin Mar Cheshvan. So now we have the setup of the Sikha. The Rebbe is obviously going to go ahead and find some type of connection and address Lechacha and Zayin Mar Cheshvan. So let's find out what's Zayin Mar Cheshvan. So starting from the beginning, from the Mishnah. Zayin Mar Cheshvan is like the Mishnah, so it's a Mishnah in Tainus. As das is the tag then Sherlin is like Shamim, Tezrim Achar Achak, Kedesh Yagia Achne should be Israel Nahar Peras. So the Mishnah in Tainus is talking about rain. Now, obviously, this is mostly related to Tainus because Tainus deals with the issue with droughts and praying for rain and making Tanesim for rain. So Shalom is like Shamim, we need to do it. It's an important thing. It's going to get to the Parnasa, to the well-being, physically, health-wise, and everything of Eretz Yisrael. So it says you have to wait till Tezvav Yom Achar HaChag. This is below one shita. In other words, in the Gemara, there's a dispute, there's a machlokes. But anyhow, Ram Gamliel says that you wait 15 days after Yom Tiv, and the point is Kedei Shegia Achlin Shabi Yisrael Nahar Pras. Is up is gepasken the halacha in Rambam Shulchan Aruch. So Rebbe says this is the opinion we follow in Shulchan Aruch as be'eretz Yisrael heitnen on shel zayin shomim b'zayin b'mechashven. So it's a law that applies to Eretz Yisrael that we begin shelas kshomim. So I'm actually, you guys are I think already on the night for Cheshvan. I'm still over here in America and zayin Cheshvan. Anyhow. In Eretz Yisrael, this makes a real difference, and when we start changing the bracha. Okay, so now we know what Zayim HaCheshvan is. It's a change of a date in davening. But it's also just, at this point, it's very Eretz Yisrael based. So here comes the Rebbe already based on earlier sources. We're going to see the Shach, but he's going to bring out Zayim HaCheshvan already. You already see that there's something more to Zayim HaCheshvan. Versteht man, as das is nicht belois as shlilis. So until now, this Zayin HaCheshvan is not even a date. In the Mishnah, don't even say you start saying Shomim b'Zayin HaCheshvan. It says 15 days after Yom Tov. It's irrelevant what that date is. So by Pashas, you just read it. It's not a significant date. Zayin HaCheshvan is not significant. It's just whatever 15 days after Yom Tov would be. And perhaps if it would be Mekachin al Piriyah, and the Shchedesh was only one day, it could be a different. I mean, in other words, Zayin HaCheshvan is not a significant date. We'll see that in the Mishnah it didn't bring that date. Just a Siva Shlulis. It's kind of like we gotta wait till the last Jew gets home, and then we can do Shelas Shom. As the guys don't it Gerim Zankin Sar, so Eden visited at Onkum on the base of Gvul, and the concept that Rebbe really this is a sikha of limud of Zayim HaCheshvan, but the general Haidah that even if you don't understand anything else we say tonight, but this is what the Yom Tov of Zayim HaCheshvan is a day when we care about a Yid, even that's by Nahar Pras, Achlin should be Yisrael. Achlin doesn't just mean geographically, he lives furthest away. There could be a Yid that's Achlin should be Yisrael, and we think about him on such a day that we have to have thinking about his matzav and taking care of his matzav, make sure there's no Tzar, Gashmi, or Ruchni. So that's really, I guess, another really aspect of Zayim HaCheshvan and the Rebbe's Torah is this message, this Hira. But anyhow, back to our story. Again, it's not just a Siva Shlis, so we don't get anybody messed up while they're traveling home. We wait till everyone's home. That's not the only way to look at it. There's something more. Nor as Biz Shiva Becheshvan is as nach out a hemshich when the Alila Regel the Chag HaSukkos. This is really going to be the emphasis of the Sikha. So there's something much deeper going on. It's not just the date that changed what you say in the Siddur, and that would only apply to Eretz Yisrael. The message is actually almost irrelevant to someone that lives outside of Eretz Yisrael, like I think everyone on this Zoom. Rather, it's something that has to do with every single Yid, because it's something that's really telling us we're still not over the Yom Tov. We're still living with Sukkot. Now, the Rebbe is going to bring a source for this in classical Jewish text in the Shach. When he says, Furish in Shach, the Kol Pam, so Yisrael El Noregel, Vayuchem Lagia Levoteim Achar HaRegel. Hello, B'tezvam Yem, Vayadoim Ulam Ki'ilu Em Adayin B'Eretz Yisrael, Asukim V'Dani HaRegel, Kol Zman Shal Evrim, Hanar HaGodol Nar Pras. All right, so this Shach is a halachic, obviously a halachic work, and he's telling us something which the Rebbe said. I should speak louder.
Okay, I'm everything. Move up the sheet. Who's doing that?
The sheet's not moving. Good. Medav reden zum Zach. Very good. The main thing is Eishes. So I'm sure everyone here is probably older than me and more scholar than me. I'm just doing this because they asked me to do this. Bottom line is the Shach is telling us that really till 15 years after Yom Tov, it was considered in their minds Yidden as if they're Eretz Yisrael, even if two things: they're traveling home, and even if they already got home for 10 days, they're sitting in Eretz Yisrael. They were living near Yerushalayim. They are still Yom Tovdik. Adayin the Eretz Yisrael asuk minani haragel. So now you realize that this is not just a vort relevant to when you change your Shez Sham. but it's telling you till when is really Yom Tov still brewing? When is the spirit of Yom Tov still going? When is the mamash the last stop in the train? I want to just say that I had a little time this Shabbos. The only time I get to learn is on Shabbos. Whatever, I tried to learn, but this was very, very geschmack. I looked up the Shulchan Aruch inside to see really what is the Shach doing? Why did he get worried about this? So even though later in the Sikh, the Rebbe is going to mention one thing, but it's if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, you see something interesting. And that is, basically, as you see in Hara 7, it's from Cheshin Mishpat, Siman Mem Gimel, Sivkot Mem Zayin. This is where the Shach is discussing. Now, what's going on in Shulchan Aruch? It's in a series of laws about halva, of loan. And listen, the Shach is sometimes a mefarish on the Shulchan Aruch. Sometimes he's explaining or adding details he wouldn't know from the Shulchan Aruch. Based on this, we should be machmer, or those who learn the Shulchan Aruch know what I'm talking about. But here he actually argues with the Mechaber. He's not just a commentary on the page. He's not just elucidating the words of the Mechaber. He's chaylik on the Mechaber. So it's interesting to know this. What's the deal? So Siman Mem Gimel deals with the necessity. Siman Gimel's title is you have to write Zman in a shtar, which is obviously very important in order for a shtar to be effective. There's a takana in the Gemara that you have to have a shtar needs to have Zman. So this is the last sif of Siman Mem Gimel. The Mechaber writes like this: in Kosu b'shtar ad achara Pesach. If someone writes in a shtar, whatever the shtar is, let's say it's halva, I owe you money and I'll pay you back until after Pesach. So what's after Pesach? Is it the minute after Pesach? How long can I go after Pesach? So he says, Hainu achiyav reba yomim shen Pesach la'atzeres. So very interesting law. Says the Mechaber, you have to calculate how much is halfway through Pesach until Shavuos. Once it's after Roiv Hayomim, then it's already too late. But as long as it's until then, you could pay. You can pay probably Rosh Chodesh Nisan as ER. You can pay a whole bunch of time way after Yom Tov. So the Shach. So again, the point is the halacha is about a time in a shtar when you have to pay. If you said it till after Pesach, it doesn't just mean the day after Pesach. It doesn't mean Israel. Doesn't mean the night when you get your chametz back. You have a bunch of days to pay. The guy said, I need my money. He says, until after Pesach, Pesach is finished. It's still got a lot of time. So the Shach says, this is not going to work. He says, let's go to Sukkot. So you're going to tell me it's after Sukkot. I'm going to pay after Sukkot. When's after Sukkot? So you're going to say the same calculation from Pesach, from Sukkot to Pesach. You have like 3 months. It's Hanukkah time. Oh, it's still after Sukkot. It's still time. Until it's getting closer to Pesach, then I'm going to pay. So the Shach doesn't take on the Mechaber. And he brings from the Beinu Chananel. And then he says, the Beinu Chananel gives this understanding that you have 15 days. There's 15-day program. So if you say after Pesach, after Sukkot, after Shavuot, it's very clear. It's always 15 days. Why? The same idea. There's Aliyah L'Regel. You have these 15 days barrier that you have 15 days and afterwards, it's finished. So the Shach almost asks himself, but nowadays, we don't go, we don't go to Eretz Yisrael. So the Shach says that the Lashon Achar HaRegel still means the Lashon state. In other words, when you say after Yom Tov, it still means 15 days. Which is like a deichik answer in a certain extent, but this is the Shach's thing. And the Vart again is, now we just learned the nigla of it, but it is the Shach arguing on the Mechaber about a halachic issue of shtar. But while he says that, he gives you this appreciation, gives you the spirit of what Yidden were doing till after Yom Tov. So you have almost like a Ruchni's Dika situation of the Hergish of Yidden. Again, there's two halachas here. There's one halacha how you daven. There's a halacha how you write a shtar. He says, the Mechaber said very simply, you don't worry how long it takes to get back for a regel. It's not relevant. It's after Yom Tov is how people speak. After Yom Tov, obviously, once it's majority days, already Shavuos is coming. You can't say it's after Pesach. It's almost Shavuos. So he has this thing. The Shach doesn't accept this. And therefore, the Shach takes in an Indian that has to do with davening, which is Shelas Kshamim, and he says that's going to be the key how we write a shtar. But you have to appreciate this is amazing. The Shach is incorporating almost like a spiritual thing, or a Indian of how Yidden go to go to the Beis Hamikdash and their impact that it takes them back. They feel like they're still in Eretz Yisrael till Mamish till the end, and then you can't say it's after Sukkot anymore. It's already Zayin Mechashvan, we're up to a new stage. Then it's Taka, you have to pay off the star, whatever it is. All right, so let's go back into the Sikha. So we're on the paragraph, if you want to scroll it up, yeah, das heißt, as ein Mecheshvan is the Tag, was is Madgish, dem Gemara Hilach, Val Regel. So now the Rebbe is really telling us what is ein Mecheshvan. The ein Mecheshvan is telling us this is the end of the Lila Regel. And this is going to be the kind of the whole discussion of the Sikha. Zayin Mecheshvan is really funny because really it's not, really Vav Cheshvan is the last day where Yom Tov Dik, and Zayin Mecheshvan really starts, you already start Shelas Geshamin, the night of Zayin Mecheshvan already changed. So really now is the time when starting Yerida. Eden kommen herab von der Shleimus HaKdusha, mit seinem Spiritualim, jeder einer kommt zu sein Ort, Tachas Gabne, Tachas Dinase. Yidden now are on the way home, and now they're finally settling. Coming from the holiness of Yishalayim, everyone now is settled in his own spot. But Eretz Yisrael, the B'chutz La'aretz, whether he's in Eretz Yisrael or Chutz La'aretz, Biz, so the Achlin should be Yisrael, and now we finally have every Jew settled in Chutz La'aretz. The Gracht, the Noah Pras, reaches the last Gvul of Eretz Yisrael, which is Noah Pras. So, there's, I don't know how much time we have, but bottom line is so far, we're now already have an Inyan. Hadal Gzam HaCheshvan is a new way. Again, it's not a technical buffer zone that you can't ask Sham until the guy's home, so wait. No, it's the spirit of the Shach. The Shach's telling us that Yidden are Asukim, Binyani, and Regel, they're still in Eretz Yisrael in their minds. And so this is a different way of looking at Zayin Mecheshvan. It's the end of Tishrei, and it's kind of the beginning of going into Velt after having the Beis HaMikdash. So this is where Beis is set up to now get back to the Parsha. We started off, we're going to talk about the Parsha and Zayin Mecheshvan's relationship. We dealt, so to speak, with the mechanics of what's Zayin Mecheshvan, and now we're getting into what is Parshas Lech Lecha. Fine. Beis. Lefi zeh darf man verstehen die Shachitz zu Parshas Lech Lecha or Parshas Lech. What's the relationship? And the Rebbe is going to address the question. Wo es redt sich wegen wo es redt sich und is mudgash. Der Hapech Lech min Eretz und Ladchem Mesa Vichal Aretz Asher Raka. Der Licha Vali von Abraham im Kaimei Ba'atzei a Reiskin von Chutz La'aretz Charan und gehen kein Eretz Yisrael. So it's not a one little line in the parsha you have to address here. This is the whole story. The whole story is Abraham wasn't in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem's time to go to Eretz Yisrael. And that is going to Eretz Yisrael. If I'm going to Eretz Yisrael, the whole Zayin Mecheshvan is we're finally out of Eretz Yisrael, or not finally out. We're finally finished with the Beis HaMikdash. We have to now get back into Velt. When Aval biyaz gleich b'tchilas haSeder werd erzählt, as v'yered Avram Mitzrayim. So you say, hey, he went to Eretz Yisrael, but immediately there was one of the tests. There was a famine. He had to go to Mitzrayim, so he also left Eretz Yisrael. Doch aber bewusst der Techniken von jeden Sedra sagt sich heraus in den Namen, was Shasinu ist da in dem Namen Parshas Namen Lech Lecha. Das weiß die Alicha von Chutzla'aretz weil die in Eretz Yisrael. So although you can tell me there's a episode that does discuss someone leaving Eretz Yisrael, Abraham is leaving, he's going to, he was in Eretz Yisrael, he leaves. So too, that's really Zayin Mecheshvan. So the Rebbe, that's not the name of the Parsha. The main Teichen of the Parsha is discussing the name, and the Lech Lecha is referring to his going to Eretz Yisrael. More importantly, says the Rebbe said that Kekula Dagen Avram's Zayin Eretz Yisrael. So although there is an episode of, besides the Parsha's name, but really the whole thrust of the story is Avram Eretz Yisrael. There was this issue with going to Mitzrayim and Sarah, and the Rav Ba'aretz, and then but the carry on of the segment, the majority is talking about Abraham in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so now we understand the question. The Rebbe is going to dress it up more, but this is the question. Sign the Parshas Shavua, Kidu Teres Adam Razakin. As when Medarf 11 mit der Zeit mit der Parshas Shavua, sei in dem Indien von Zayin Mecheshvan, fordert sich Bier, wie kommen sie zusammen, die zwei Jahre, was seine Beteichen aufgehen, einem von dem Zweiten. So, we're meant to live with the Parsha of the week. Now, the Rebbe is not just asking this question, how does it work, how is it connected, the Shalah says, but being that we're meant to live with the week, we're meant to live with Avraham Avinu, we're supposed to go to Eretz Yisrael with Avraham Avinu. So, what's the story here that we what's a story here that we're talking about Zayim Cheshvan at the same time? They're opposite teichens. So interesting. Quick footnote. Number 12, where you don't have to push the page down. It's all good. The Frierdiker Rebbe's Sefer HaSichos Tafshin Beis is the source of this verb. Medaf 11 side. This verb really could apply to any part of the Torah. It could be in the beginning, Bereshis. But when does it really tell us to live? Is Parshas Lacha, because it's them Melep mit Avram Avinu. And I just thought it's interesting that this verb sounds so enormous, sounds so classic. This is just not I have no explanation. I'm just thinking to myself out loud. It's strange, like this word. It's like, there's certain Rebbe Shazach, and like the Frierdiker heard from the Rebbe Rashab, this specific Indian or Rebbe Shazach. This things like it sounds like it would be so classic. The source would be, much earlier. It's like the Frierdiker Rebbe was told that Rebbe Rashab, the Alter Rebbe was like, almost like this best kept secret. I'm sure it wasn't, but it sounds interesting to me that this is almost like a word that was saved for us. Like we should. This is something that the Rebbe really taught us, but it's just interesting. That's like the Frierdiker Rebbe heard from the Rebbe Rashab that this is the whole story of the Alter Rebbe and the Maria, whatever, the brother, the Alter Rebbe. Anyhow, like you would assume it's like a classic Chabad word that everyone should have been talking about. Didn't have to hear it from the Rebbe Rashab. It would be like, I don't know, the Rashba, whoever taught him, whoever like Chassidim before that. There's many such right there that are like classics by us, and it's like from the Frierdiker Rebbe's Sefer HaSichos, right? All right. Now the Rebbe is going to kind of emphasize his question even further. But for that, is it an Inyan? Was es given Shaykh nur beim Mikdash? Der ist manche beim Mikdash Kayam, wenn man hat given the Regel, nor es ist echt Shaykh zu Eden Bechol Azman. And this is something that we kind of said already ourselves, but the Rebbe's now bring out that once we realize this Zayim Cheshvan issue is not just something that's relevant to the time of the Beis Hamikdash, it's relevant to us today. Mr. Far is Shelas Geshon B'Zayim Cheshvan right Yisrael Oich B'Zman Hazeh. V'Yid Alter Rebbe bringt up B'Shulchan Aruch. So this whole discussion is also in Alter Rebbe B'Shulchan Aruch. Af v'achar ha'churban. Ha'mis'as gam ken mikol ha'svives b'Yerushalayim l'regel k'mei she'esim gam hayoyim. It's a very interesting thing. There are many things we do today because the Chacham made a takana. And even if things change, we don't do it. But here there's like a specific reason why. Like really, the takana could have gone away. Like it's not relevant now. But since there's still Yidden that go up to Eretz Yisrael, so this is an interesting historical, I don't know where this fits in with the learning, but bottom line is, the Alter Rebbe said there was still an Indian of Yidden going up to Eretz Yisrael, and it's interesting. That's like a reason why, it's like really we can move out to the Takana, and this is the reason. Like there's a few Yidden going to Eretz Yisrael. It's fascinating. I'm sure there's a lot to learn about this. I will tell you though that in this Sikha it's not brought down, but in in a letter, there's a letter the Rebbe wrote to a Yid. I actually wanted to look it up. I didn't have a chance. It's printed in the back of L'Kutei Seches Chelik Yud. And the Rebbe writes to him a letter, and this is almost like Rogachever style. The date of the letter is Zayin Mar Cheshvan. So there was a whole explanation on the bottom. What does Zayin Mar Cheshvan mean? This is like Tashin Chav Gimel. So this Sikha is from Mem Aleph. This is way earlier. The Rebbe there says that the fact that the Rebbe emphasizes this thing that Shemis Asvim Gamkin Mikol Asvim V'Rishalayim L'Regel K'mei She'esim Gam Hayoyim. This emphasis that the Rebbe brings is. The Rebbe says this is to negate the problem of the Shach. The Shach was like saying, you're writing in a Shtar L'Achar Regel today, so like you're not going to the Beis Hamikdash, so how does this work? And so he kind of, the Lashon of the Shach was that the Lashon still stuck, that Achar Regel means 15 days. It's almost like the Gab and Adorim. What's Lashon Me'adam? So also here, this is how people write, this is what they mean. When he wrote Achar Regel, he means this. It's not relevant today. So the Shach kind of struggles and says it's still halachically acceptable that you can mean 15 days after Yom Tov because that's what you mean. The Rebbe says in this letter in the Ara that Gam Hayoim is what Alter Rebbe is emphasizing. This is not just a foreign practice, but it is significant till today, and therefore when someone can write the Shtar, it's not what he means because there's still such a concept of going to the Beis Hamikdash. Anyhow, let us now get to the final part of the paragraph. That's right. Until now, we're almost addressing Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe says this applies, as we've kind of already discussed at length. The Shach sagt, as schreit in a star achar regel. This is what we just talked about. Barichos meintas tezvav yom achar chag. Later Mishnah now, based on the Mishnah, which telling you says Kshamin is 15 days after Yom. This is, by the way, where the Shach kind of is difficult for him to understand this. These words. Even though we're in Golos, in other words, we don't do this. It's kind of the same lashon. So I mentioned to you this. This is the word of the Shach. And again, in that letter, the Rebbe says that's what the Alter Rebbe is emphasizing in his Shulchan Aruch to say it's not just like the lashon is nimshach mehem. No, this is something that's significant till today. Okay, so as always, the question's always exciting. Now we're getting finally where the Rebbe is going to start addressing the answer. Okay, I know we don't have so much time. We'll do as much as we can, and then it's such a Geshmaka Inyan, you'll probably just continue on your own, wherever the people tell me what to do. Gimel. And again, this is not the ultimate answer to Sikha Gimel, but it already gives you, again, you can take home with this and you already have what to live with. Gimel, the etzem inyan, as in the Avodah von ihnen Avweggehen from Beis HaMikdash is done Ilui. The very, very fact that leaving Beis HaMikdash comes now a important Ilui in Yidden's Avodah, was mitzad dehem yishlema zvet angeruf v'lechlech. And it's worthy to say that just because it's such a powerful mission to go back home with after Beis HaMikdash, you could call that lachlecha. Which the word lecha means that there's something, you're going higher, you're coming to a greater place. His move on daf given in kommen on kol ach la Beis Elam kemai und adem chedesh adem zereya macht der id von seinen dvarm gashma der leis barak v'dachtenim durch der mitzvahs kol my sache ilushem shamayim and chod acherde. So the Rebbe is pretty much telling us the story of Jewish life. It's called the Ratzeh and Shuv. And the Rebbe says that, right, the certain Inyanim, the certain Musagim, and because the Torah, you learn a little bit like the whole Judaism, Ratzeh and Shuv, everything's the same thing. Right? You learn a little Siddur, you realize there's certain code words that teach you all the tricks to life. But anyhow, then this is the balance in so many areas of life. On one hand, the Beis HaMikdash is the holiest place. At the same time, the Kavanah is Dirib Dachtoinim. So what is happening when you didn't leave the Beis HaMikdash? They're getting fully charged taka. It's taka at an incredible level of spirituality, of energy from Yom Tif, and now they're going into Avodah. But the Avodah now is something that's the whole deal. That's the Kavanah. So I want to tell you a secret. Many of us don't deal with agriculture, but they were still physical people in the Beis HaMikdash, and they still have to deal with nonetheless, it's not so emphasized as it would be out when they are back home after the Berach Matya. Certainly, it's not business time, it's Yom Tif, it's time they're away from their households, their fields. But from Zayin Mechazron marks the day. Not, again, it's interesting. Vav Mechazron is still Yom Tif. Zayin Mechazron means Avodah. What's the kavanah? What are we here for? Aber von Zayin Mechazron on, when Eden Haben zurück on Chrisha, now Eden going back to plowing. Now is when we take the koiches, but now we're about to do, and we're going to ahead and making a dinner b'tachleinim. Ayisin Erben Acheshach, which is the incredible advantage of when you transform the cheshach to so this is lacha. Lacha means aliyah. There's an aliyah happening. Okay, Abraham was going from Chorn to Eretz Yisrael. We're going back from Eretz Yisrael, but we're going higher. We're getting closer to what the Eibusher really wants. The dugmas when we become when you get to that you need the kollel. You need our kollel. So the Rebbe says this is basic Judaism, right? The story of our neshamas. What's the story of every Yid? It's pretty much the same issue. He has a place of holiness, and has a place of Tara, and he's going to a world that's Gashmis. So, but coming out to this world and filling his mission, A neshama gets to a higher spot, a higher place through this Aveda. So far, this is a great explanation. We had a question, how does Lecha fit with Zamar Cheshvan? The opposites, we said, hey, you have to realize, you have to be educated about the Kavanah of Dina B'Tachteinin. If you would realize what is our job mission, Taka Beis Hamikdash is amazing, but really, the real Aliyah is when you're involved in Tachteinin. And I want to say this is a very apropos Inyan. Really, the whole Sikha is going to end up talking about this. The next paragraph is challenging this idea based on an interesting question, and the Rebbe is going to have to, I don't want to say fine-tune, but talk a lot about Dina B'Tachteinin to answer this question. So let's first read the question. And again, I believe with perfect faith that the Shalah, if you wanted to find the connection between the parasha and this, would be very happy. But our Rebbe needs everything to fit on every level. And we're talking about Tachteinin, he wants to get into the Pshat. Das ist aber nicht maßbig, levardi, shaychus, so parashas Lecha, wie das ist bepshudish mikra. So did I find the connection? I found the connection. But the Rebbe needs to, whatever you want to say, this is not going to satisfy pshudish mikra. What? As es redet sich wegen Alichas Abraham von Chutzlaretz ken Eretz Yisrael, und wo es ist mudgash, der Lecha durch den Hiloch von Chutzlaretz ken Eretz Yisrael. The whole parsha is that then they're talking about leaving Chara, leaving Chutzlaretz and entering Eretz Yisrael. And we're discussing the opposite. So you told me there's an Eli, there is an Aliyah, there is Lecha in the sense when you take the word Lecha out of the pasuk. Lecha means going higher, going to a greater place. There's going to greater places. But what does that have to do with the story in the parasha is that he's going to Eretz Yisrael, and we are going away from Eretz Yisrael? How is this going to work in Pshuta Shemikra? Again, this is where the Rebbe is really taking the Sikh on his own shoulders. There's a connection between Parashas Lecha and Zamar Cheshvan very nicely. The Rebbe is going to take this on a deeper level. So we're not going to for sure be able to finish those Sikha, but I wanted to say one thing before we go further. I think this is very important, because really the Sikha is going to fine-tune this by giving more depth to Dina B'Tachteinin. That's really the end of the Sikha. And that is like this. That I think it's Bamish Negah nowadays. I think one of the main issues, I mean, I know in England there's also Corona, so everywhere is a Corona, so everyone knows there's different Hagbolas and how you work things out with this and the other. A lot of Halamas for the stadium. One of the main things that you start realizing in every aspect, whatever involvement you're in a community, you're in a business, whatever you're involved in, whatever it is, whatever your Veda in life is that there's more Kavana, there's more Shuv than Ratzai. Does that make sense? Ratzai is, I would like it to be like this. And Shuv says, it's good that you're not the Abish, that the Abish is another plan. You're going to start figuring out that there's things other than what you think. I don't mean to put down Ratzai. Ratzai is a very important element. Well, like Yom Tiv this year, so a lot of people go to the Rebbe, couldn't go. In other words, everything, the main, right, even Goyim understand this, that the Abish is calling the shots, he's telling who's in control. There's no way you can get carried away with your own spiritual pursuits. It's very much, what does the Abish want? That's pretty much the theme of this whole issue. So I'm just thinking to myself, this is just really, I think the Sikha, and you have to have the balance of both. If you don't have the Ratzai, that's the basis of Siddhis. If you don't have the charge, the spiritual connection, the involvement in Torah, you can't go into Velton and make it the Yisr Ar from the Cheshach. You'll be left with Cheshach. So again, it has to be for bringing about both sides. But I think the Sikha and us this day, think about it. This is really what everyone's going through. Is sometimes we have our own concoctions of what we're meant to do. They're saying this is exactly what I want you to do. Now there's arguments. What does Abish want us to do? Okay, I understand. There's a lot of fun to figure out. But I just think that this Zayin Cheshvan is like the date we're celebrating all year. With this Corona. Obviously, Mitzvah wouldn't be. Everyone should be healthy and everyone should have simchas and everything should go the way it should be. But this nakuda of is very nice. You could be in the base of English, but the main thing is the is really what this Ratzai and Shuv, the terms I'm using for it. I guess the classic Hasidic terms for this is really what I think we have to always remind ourselves. And the problem is that we always can get focused on Shuv, and then we have to somehow realize that this is not what gives us the chayes. The chayes is the Ratzai. So there's the balance. Anyhow, I thought that it's very relevant, this Sikha, to our situation today. You can learn this. You can learn this on Rosh Hashanah, would be applicable. You can learn it now. Anyhow, that's till Dalit. So should we go further? What's the story, rabbis?
Officially, it's definitely time up. Unofficially, you can do whatever you want.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I don't want anybody, first of all, it's great to see everybody here. Let me just say hello to people. I see Rabbi Glickman. I see the Cohens, my cousins, my nieces, whatever they're called, my nieces and nephews, very nice. I see this other people. Okay, I don't know everyone, very nice. Anyhow, that's number one. Number two is, I think we could do one more ice, because it gives you a little more already where the Rebbe is going to start talking about. One more ice? And
sure.
No one is obligated to stick on. But again,
Absolutely.
remember the main messages. What did you say, Rabbi?
We're good.
Okay, good. So again, the main message of Zayim HaCheshvan is it's the Yom Tov that we celebrate the Achlan Shabi Yisrael with ourselves, within our families, with others. Make sure every year is taking care of Pashma Gashris, Beruchnius. And now we're taking a really like the now we're getting to the depth. Really, what Zayim HaCheshvan messages is how do we go into Welt from Yom Tov? That's pretty much the discussion. Dalit. Und das verstehen, behektim, hachilo, zwischen dem Maim und dem Matze von Eden Bal Yosem L'Regel. So, if you want to understand what the Ratzi is, you have to first understand the Shuv. I'm sorry, the Shuv, if you want to understand the Veda B'Dibdach Teinim, that it's so important, you have to know, what does it mean to go to Eretz Yisrael? What does it mean to go to the Beis HaMikdash? What is Eden's Matze when they go up to the Ebershter? Wenn sie haben sich gefunden auf Hashem, the Gabi, sie haben in the Matze, gefunden sich so what is the difference? There's even in Eretz Yisrael, in the Beis HaMikdash, and there's when they're on their own field, and their own home, their own comfort, or their own setting. Nidl Fnei Hashem. Was es gemoved by Yidel, the Gabi Zer Mayim the Matzah, Zayin Fnei Hashem. So obviously there's a certain level of Yidel. They're not on that level of being in the Beis HaMikdash. Is aber da an Aliyah v'ilui davke durch dem. Was they sagen invite need the Malkam Hashem Hashem. But there is still another. The Rebbe is almost saying, let's figure out both sides. How do you balance these out? In other words, there's a matzav of the Fnei Hashem. There's a matzav of Tachas Gaf and Tachas Enos. And yet we're saying there's a big mila. There's a Ilui Valiyah Davke in Nid B'Makam Hashem. Nid B'Makam Hashem. So the Rebbe basically, Daled is kind of giving you a core of an idea by illustration of two types of halachic situations or positions, and then the rest of the Sikha gives you more aces on that. So whatever you're going to doubt already is going to tell us a lot about it, and it's going to be telling us that even though, and again, I think this is so apropos to learn at such a time when there's so many things. I don't know what the matzahs where you do. Is there minyanim? Is there not minyanim? There was a period when there was no minyanim. Can you have people over here for Shabbos meal? Are they gonna not have the meetings in Yiddishkeit because the people are not there? There's all types of, I'm a shliach. Baruch Hashem, the weather's a little bit still warm. We have people outside. These people won't come. These people will come. We have to be careful. We do have to be careful. So this sikha is really telling us it's like the corona message. All right. So the Rebbe, to address this, let's take an example from Nigla. The difference between a sacher. Sacher is someone that you hire to work for you to do a certain project, and a shliach is an agent, someone that you don't hire. He's your messenger, he's your agent, he's your representative. A sacher is avidas b'nechlal them art from the bottom. So normally when you hire someone, you want him to do something in your house, to build something, to break something, whatever you're telling him, it's in your makom abaylim. Other makom mit nichsei abaylim. Well, maybe it's not in your house, you have a property somewhere else. But it's with nichsei abaylim. It's things that all are owned by the baylim. Otherwise, he's going to work on someone else's stuff. He can't work on someone else's stuff. If you're hiring, he's working on your stuff. It's obviously either b'makom or b'nichsei abaylim. But b'derech klal, a shliach is not going to be b'makom abaylim. He's sent. It means he's not b'makom. This wird angedeit in Lashon shliach gufa. As wird weggeschickt from the mishalech. The word shliach means he's sent. It's interesting because really, there'd be much better words to describe if a shliach is your representative, your agent. he's like a nitzig or something, or let's say you have a raffle, and then one guy goes to the Rebbe for Yud Shvat, whatever it is. He's not we call him a shliach, but really he's a nitzig. He's representing everybody. Shliach means someone you send somewhere. The shiluach hakan, the kan is not your representative, but nonetheless, we're learning something very deep about it. That part of the main word of shliach is that it should be that we use a term that will mean that he is sent, which means he's not in the makom of Mashiach. On Erich sein Asiya is lav dafür verbunden mit Chefzei Abailim, and very often it's not even with Chefzei Abailim. Shliach meant as a tut amai ze'ez shetiya for the Mashiach. So what's the definition of a shliach? Again, there's an element of the word that says he's sent, and the main focus is that he's there to do something for the Mashiach. So far we almost said geographically one's in the place of the Mishalech, one's not in the place of the Mishalech. Now we're talking about more the crux, the definition. What's the difference in the Teichen? Asachet is kol asiyasit flibzich. Very strong words. Asachet is making a paras for himself. He's working for himself. It's to make a parasa, to make money. He's working for you, but his interest, at the end of the day, his agenda is him. The shliach is what the concept of a shliach is, the pool of a ma'aser. Was I taught is be'ikr nit for zich nor for the mishaleach. So obviously, there's a lot in the Haaretz here. You guys all know about the different levels of shlichus. We're not going to get into that, but the essence, the thrust, the thrust of this Indian is a shliach is not for himself. He's doing something for someone else. The river is a shliach, is a sacher v'bal none is was tut zu sich. Is a shak v'tayt. He's ein meiser can sein wie meiser sechle. I'm sorry. Can sein wie meiser hasechle. Gerachen die balabas hat getan die meiser. So this is relevant to other issues, but sometimes can you create your sacher to be a shliach regarding something specific? And there's a whole shak of tail. Will that work or not? In other words, he's really for himself. So how can he become your shliach? Shliach is not in the art versus the mishaleach v'bal the tut as beikr not farming the mishaleach. So there is brackets here beikr whatever. Anyhow, he's doing it for the mishaleach. Is that here from the mishaleach kilo with the mishaleach that's getan. So what he's accomplished is not accomplishment for himself. It's for the mishaleach. Other nachmer. As he meise gufa is sich misyach zum mishaleach. No says that the mishaleach tut durch dem shliach. Bis zu dem Hassenneven, a shlucha shalom, kemese mamish. So the Rebbe went through the three different levels of shluchas, whether it's the maises, the ma'aser mishaleach, or it's just is what we accomplished, or it's shlucha shalom kemese. As in not the maiser shliach is unser koyach ha-maiser. Wird azoi wie the mishaleach. Not only is that becoming part of the mishaleach, or for the Mishaleach, nor the Shliach Gufa werd die Metzias von Mishaleach, was der Fahr helpt as in Azach and Yanim was the Mishaleach bedarf allein tun. So this is kind of the story of Zamar Cheshvan, and it's the secret to break the code and find out how really Lechacha is the story of Zamar Cheshvan is to realize what a Shliach is. And it's taka far away, but ultimately he is more than the guy that is in the Beis HaMikdash, that is in the Makom HaBailim, because he is really not for himself. He's really for the Eibishter. And the language later will be used is Nivra and Boida. Socher is a guy that's in the Makom HaBailim. He's hired to work in the Makom HaBailim. He's doing a lot of things for the Bailim. But he, at the end of the day, is himself. He is a Nivra. And then there's something called Boida. And that is when the person that's doing it is not doing for himself, but he's doing it for the Mishaleach. Obviously, this is a very, very amazing Indian, and it can be talked about by Barichus, but we are going to stop here. Wish you all a wonderful night. And the Avodah, I personally think the Avodah that we're living in now is so relevant to this Indian. We're not B'Meis HaMikdash. That means whether you came for usually come for Tishrei, you weren't in there for Tishrei, whether you're going to go for the Knesset Shluchim, you're not going to be able to go for the Knesset Shluchim. It can mean for every person different thing. Or some people that they used to go to be able to go to shul, they can't go to shul. Some people used to go to Torah classes, they can't go to Torah classes. Okay, the Zoom, whatever. But this is the story of doing the Kavan Aliyena for the Eibush and not based on our agendas. So I appreciate joining you. I hope you guys also enjoyed as well. Good night, and the bracha I give ourselves, each other, is to live with this Achlan Sheba Yisrael, to live with this kavana-oriented mindset, which is not easy, and yet just to have the ratzai sometimes in order to empower that there should be a shuv that's kedaboy. Anyhow, l'chaim.
Amen. I wish you shigach mati until next time. Hopefully very soon. We'll bring together.
Okay, thank you.
Call to everybody. A good night. The breakout rooms are closing down. For those of us who are not in them, Atzlacha Rabba. Call to 60 seconds. Okay.